All right, we're starting in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Super Black. We are your host, Carl.
And I'm Dan.
And today we are doing a very special episode with a very close family member of mine, Darren Emmanuel. Say hello, Darren.
Hello, Darren.
I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Today's episode is focused on wrestling, fake pro wrestling. It's real to us, but specifically black tag teams in WWE. Now, why do we talk about black tag teams in WWE? Well, they are all so very strange, so very weird, eclectic group of stereotypical black ideals.
Wait.
Ideas?
No, what? Not even ideals.
Not ideals. Ideas?
No, not even ideas. Can we just say straight up racist? Can we say that?
I want to refrain from saying racist, only because I know Darren has a vast wealth of knowledge on these teams.
I will say stereotypical.
Okay.
I will say that all of wrestling since the 60s has been very, very stereotypical, and that's been part of the success of it. And it's been the only genre that has been allowed to transcend the politically correct, I guess, atmosphere that we're in right now, where people can suspend their beliefs and remember that, hey, there are differences between everybody, and it's fun to kind of not just celebrate, but mock or learn about or just have fun with other races and cultures.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. I never thought about it that way. Carl?
I'm on that side. I'm teetering on the edge between racist and what Darren just said, only because there are some things, some teams that we'll talk about a little later, that no matter how you phrase them, they're racist, or at least embody the negative stereotypes that plague kind of young black men through the years. So however you want to put that, I still don't find them particularly enjoyable or positive. Let's get into it a little bit. What was your introduction to either black tag teams or black wrestling in general in your lives?
Okay.
Well, my introduction into black tag teams probably started from wrestling magazines. I used to be an avid reader of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And the good thing about that is it allowed you to look at other organizations outside of the New York-based territory, which is WWF at the time. And I remember reading an article about Tony Atlas playing basketball as a fundraiser for like a children's organization. And there was a couple people there with him, like the Brooklyn Brawler and some other wrestlers from some other organizations. But I remember thinking, like, Tony Atlas, and as a kid, you grew up hearing the name Tony Atlas, or Atlas is the guy that holds the world on his back. And he looked like a guy that would be holding the world on his back. Yeah, so I started to look a little bit more into Tony Atlas, and back then there was no internet, so I had to either ask friends who were big wrestling fans. I had to ask my father, who knew a lot about the black tag teams, because he was big on black wrestlers, and then just buy more magazines. And I found out that he used to be tag team champions with this guy Rocky Johnson, which at the time was impossible to find anything on unless you had old magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my introduction.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot better than most people can say in terms of introductions. Like, let's say, Carl, you want to go next or me?
I'll go next.
Okay.
My introduction to, I don't remember the first black tag team. It was probably the Nation of Domination, if I'm being honest. But my first introduction to just a black wrestler in general was the Junkyard Dog. And I was introduced to him through my father, who gave me one of those old non-posable plastic toys. And if you Google Junkyard Dog action figure, I think it's the only one ever made. It's just this, he's trying to give you a hug. He's just this giant black wrestler. And I never saw him wrestle. but I would just play with this toy all the time, and I just knew who the Junkyard Dog was. And then one day, I think it was one of the TV shows on Fox 5. It was WWE. Come on, Darren, you know the show I'm talking about. It came on Sundays.
On Fox 5, no, it was the Saturday show usually on Channel 5 after cartoons would pop on.
No, it was Sunday mornings. It was probably a replay.
Well, then you're probably thinking of like the Titan wrestling replay or something like that, where they would show you just like highlights. Who hosted it? Was that Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain?
I don't remember.
Or
it was highlights.
It could have been a couple of things. Yeah, and if it was highlights, it was either like it was probably primetime. It was
probably primetime. Right?
Now I'm looking back on it, because they were the only ones that would show highlights from like main events or just random jobbers versus guys.
So that was my first introduction. Like I would watch that and look for the Junkyard Dog to find out, was he a good wrestler? And then from there, I kind of got sucked into wrestling, and then saw the Nation of Domination, and that's my intro.
Okay. My intro is a little different, I guess. It's like I was always aware that the WWF existed. Like when I was in Trinidad, my first introduction was the actual cartoon and the small action figures. And then when I moved to the States, I knew that it existed, and I didn't really get into it until probably my sophomore year of high school, which is like 1997.
Attitude era.
Yep. And this is where like my friends were, it's like not even my friends, like people I went to school with, are huge wrestling fans. And they had an extra ticket one day. And they're like, hey, do you want to come? I was like, sure, no problem. It's like, all right, you got to make a poster because we want to get on television. I was like, okay, all right, fine. And introduced to the Nation of Domination. And they were my first, I guess, jump off for black tag teams. And from there on out, I was always in and out of wrestling, paying attention here and there, like through Harlem Heat and all those different tag teams. But, I'm still very much an outsider, so I'm always curious to hear what Darren has to say because he sounds very knowledgeable. But I lean on the other end of the spectrum where, like, from the outside looking in, not knowing the history, and I just Googled Junkyard Dog, to be absolutely honest, and it's a huge black man with a chain around his neck. And I was like, oh, okay.
That man could talk, and he could put on a show like no other. He at his time, put it like this, when he on Saturday Night's Main Event teamed with Hulk Hogan, and you guys can take a look at this on the WWE Network, find that episode where the main event was Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan versus whoever. The fans reacted and cheered for the Junkyard Dog way more than Hulk Hogan, and that was part of his downfall. But that's for another episode. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know what to say about that now.
Well, Hulk Hogan was the star, so it's if anybody else out cheers the star or gets more notoriety or just more fan reaction, it's like, okay, well, there's a certain way we're going in the business that kind of upsets where our profits are going to be, because if the fans are clamoring for the Junkyard Dog and we've invested so much time and money and marketing and everything into Hulk Hogan, for us to scrap that whole project to then take a chance on the Junkyard Dog as a black wrestler in the 80s, it's to them, they're like, all right, we've got to just, it wasn't a racially motivated thing per se. It was more of Vince McMahon going, all of our money and all of our time and energy in this machine is in Hulk Hogan. So we can't scrap that project and risk it on someone who kind of, is, even though he's had a name for himself down south, we can't risk that into New York territory.
I'm speechless. I really am speechless. Like, there's a lot of things I'm thinking about now, but I think it'll have us veer off topic altogether. But that's a whole, like you said, it's a whole conversation for another time.
Yeah,
no problem.
It's part of the reason why he left too.
It all feeds into everything. Like those same decisions are why, like, the New Day becomes a thing. That's why Crime Time comes along. That's why Street Profits are. They like all those decisions that are made and which teams can get over on their own versus others that need help. Specifically, black tag teams. All those decisions from Vince and up high is like if they get too big and they're kind of stepping on the toes of something they've invested money in, things have to change, or maybe they're not on TV anymore, or maybe, the team takes a turn, or, it all, like if there's a really great wrestling podcast called How It Ended. where the hosts talk to former WWE wrestlers who've either moved on to other promotions or just given up wrestling altogether, and they talk about like, how did your career end? And I believe they spoke to JTG, part of Crime Time, and there was extenuating circumstances. Is that the right word? Extenuating.
Extenuating. That's
circumstances. Right. I should have trusted myself. There were extenuating circumstances to why he left, but there were decisions made that maybe they were not getting over as well, or kind of the gimmick they were given or saddled with, I would put it, just wasn't working. It was one of those things. So let's just kind of dive right in and let Darren kind of educate both of us and the listeners on some of these tag teams. So we mentioned JTG and what is his name? Shad Gaspard. Yeah, of Crime Time. So if you can give us kind of just a high level overview of what Crime Time, the tag team, was.
Well, the funny thing, Crime Time, both of those guys are from Brooklyn. They're from New York. So, hometown boys like us. And if you look into the history, and what you guys should do, and for any listener out there, you should look up Shad Gaspard just to see how long his actual name is. Because I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, this is not real. This guy's got like 10 names. But of the two, the one that absolutely should have been a breakout star should have been Shad. And that's not because, let's say, he was better looking or he had a better style. I mean, the guy was like 6'6", 300 pounds of just pure muscle and beef. But his background, he was a bodyguard for like Britney Spears and I think Cuba Gooding Jr. And at one point, like, he worked with Mike Tyson as a bodyguard for him. He has a background in MMA. He studied Jeet Kune Do. Like, he literally was anything that you could think of like as a breakout star or somebody that you could use their background to make them a star. Should have been Shad Gaspard. Only problem is he kind of suffered a little bit from that Brooklyn mentality. And that's kind of how he grew up. He's of Caribbean descent, just like us as well. And, he grew up pretty much in the mean streets, so that's what he knew. Now, JTG, for how they met, I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe they met in OVW. And the original name of JTG at the time, I think, was something like Neighborhood Gangsta or Neighborhoodie or something like that, like something really weird. And because he had that name, they put him in a tag team with Shad, and they called themselves the Gang Stars. And and they held on to the OVW Tag Team Championships maybe once or twice. They weren't like a really big brand name team, but because of their look, because of their size, and because they brought something different to the table, whereas every tag team at the time was very vanilla. And we're talking about like 2005, 2006 kind of thing. Tag teams, they rise and fall all the time. It's like an ebb and flow with the tag team division. So they were something different to look at. They were quickly catapulted to the OVW, from OVW to the Raw brand. And they were given these really stupid vignettes. I don't know if you remember these, Carl. But just do you remember seeing the vignettes of Crime Time where they would steal the belongings of other people?
Man.
Right.
Boy.
Yeah. So that was the origins of Crime Time. And and at the time, we're talking about when tag teams, when Booker T and Goldust were a thing. So comedy was really big in wrestling. And JT and Shad, for everything that Crime Time was on the surface, what they were in the backgrounds, it was just like a purely fun comedic routine for people to laugh at a little bit and poke fun at. But at the same time, like we said, very borderline stereotypical.
Not borderline. I don't think there's a borderline there. I think they crossed that line.
No, it's like they're playing into stereotypes.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, because if you think about it, if they had put, because they're two black guys, but if they had put any two people together and named them Crime Time,
but they didn't.
How else could you play that though to make it work?
They didn't. It's like this. So this is a question that I have. Who is in charge of handing out the personas of these characters? You're going to be doing this. Say again.
These guys kind of chose it themselves when they were in OVW. So put it like this, right? If I put Joe Schmo and Thomas Long and a tag team, call them Crime Time, and have them steal things, all of a sudden it doesn't feel as real. It doesn't suspend your belief. You're just like, oh, these are just two random guys stealing things, because of their personalities, because of the way they spoke, because of the fact that, yes, they were black. They were, it's a catch-22. It's racist, but at the same time, whoever made that decision goes, this is going to work because of who you two guys are. So you're going to make money initially. You're going to gain some buzz specifically from something so silly. The sad part is that they gimmick themselves out. They didn't know how to evolve their own characters. Like in the world of wrestling, you're handed a concept, or you need to come up with a concept. But either way, you yourself have to evolve it. You can't expect the company to do it for you. So if you stay Crime Time for the rest of your life, eventually, not the company, people are just going to be bored. Like Carl will tell you, it was funny watching these guys steal like random items from wrestlers. Just like when Eddie Guerrero would do the whole lie, cheat, steal. It was funny when it first came out. We didn't necessarily view it so much as racist because of tag teams like Booker T and Goldust.
I did. I was not a huge fan of the gimmick Crime Time, only because maybe it's because I knew who the type of person they were depicting, because I probably ran into a person like that, but I didn't find them particularly funny or even interesting. I thought with most of the tag teams that we could talk about, I would just roll my eyes. I knew what they were trying to do. I knew why they were doing it. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying, where it's kind of this suspension of belief, or, kind of playing into certain stereotypes to relate to certain people, right? Like, so the reason they would do it is because basically that's what people would see when they saw that type of person, right? Like a person with a backward hat and jeans and a wife beater. They'd be like, well, they're probably going to steal something.
That's true.
So they're playing into that persona to say, okay, I understand this character. Not necessarily saying you should believe that anyone who dresses like this is going to do that, but they're saying you already believe that that's what they're going to do, so that's the character that they're going to play.
Well, all right. So let me give Dan a little bit more history, because Carl, I mean, I know you're a little far removed from it. So this is why I say what they did was it was comedic, and at the same time it played into the stereotypes. So some of the vignettes that they would do is they would regularly steal random items belonging to other wrestlers, like robes from Ric Flair and stuff like that, and then they would try to sell them back to the fans. Or there was a vignette where they were selling fake number entries into the Royal Rumble to other wrestlers. It was just like real funny stuff.
It was always like this weird like hustle and flow type of situation.
Yeah, but it never got to the point of where it was like drug related, or and we, like Carl and I both know at some point prostitutes for the Godfather was a big thing. Wow. Like it never got that far. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the Godfather, you literally used to pimp out his hoes to other wrestlers.
I remember that.
Right, but like it never got to that point. It was always done in either decent taste or in fun taste. Mm-hmm. They never tried to cross that line. It
looks like they were playing on the trend of G Unit, very much like this is what G Unit is. Like, let's face it, like 50 Cent came from the same streets, and like he,
yeah, you're talking 2006.
Yeah, exactly.
2006. Yeah, G Unit was huge.
Yeah, it's like the way you talk about it now, like makes more sense. And more like I'm looking at a couple of intros as we speak, and it makes sense. Like, yes, it's stereotypical, but I understand what they're trying to do. Like I see the comedic take, and like you can liken it to, let's face, like G Unit, NWA, as innovative as they were, as successful as they were, they're very much taking a stereotype and just reworking it and turning it into something and living these lives on record that the majority of NWA did not live to begin with.
Right.
And same thing with G Unit. Like Lloyd Banks went to private school or something like that, right?
Yeah, and you got to look at it like this too. Like Carl, for what you're saying, like, yeah, on the surface it was very, very racist. When you look at like brands like G Unit or NWA or pretty much any hip hop industry icon, whatever they portrayed, the people or the children or the teenagers that were fans of theirs were very impressionable and wanted to live their lifestyles. But something like Crime Time primetime was never that influential to the point of where they made kids want to steal things and sell them back.
Mhm.
Like it was done purely in as much good taste as possible while still trying to piggyback off of, the stereotypes at the time. Like, during wartime hostilities, when the Iraq War was going on, they had Sergeant Slaughter turn, do an about face on his country and align himself with a Saddam Hussein-like character. Or actually, he aligned himself with Saddam Hussein by, words, but they put on an on-air character that looked like Saddam Hussein, just so they can play into America versus Iraq.
Let's face it. Like the WWE is this weird micro universe that political correctness does not exist, and people are okay with it. So like you have to say, like, it's weird to say out loud, but it's weird. It's a weird situation where like it's expected. You have to suspend your belief while watching this. Like understand, like in order for this entertainment to flourish, you have to be okay with like, well, that's kind of racist. And not only towards people of color.
Okay, so let's get kind of dive back to the tag team bits.
Yes.
And
yeah, WWE is the multiverse, by the way. In case if we think about in a comic book kind of terminology, WWE would be our multiverse. It would be our alternate reality.
Damn, Carl.
So let's switch gears to a new team that I would say is more positive, and that's the New Day. So Darren, why don't you give us the kind of the breakdown of the New Day.
This is what I'm really curious about.
You want to talk about the absolute perfect transition into talking about the New Day using the word positive is exactly the original image of what the New Day was. They were supposed to be a bunch of gospel singers or like church going guys. So these are three guys who were floundering in the mid card. Xavier Woods was still on his way up.
Sorry, Darren. For the noobs listening, explain what the mid card is. Explain that to us, please.
So the mid card would be the guys who are seen as like developmental talent. They're there either to elevate up and coming talent or elevate like up and coming champions that the WWE has invested their money into, or they're there specifically just to like fill in time slots before you get to the actual feuds and events and matches that people paid money to see. Mm-hmm. So that's the mid card.
Okay.
Big E, for all intents and purposes, a really big, strong, muscular guy, suffers a little bit from the small man syndrome where he's shorter than most of the big guys. It's the British Bulldog syndrome where you're this big, huge powerhouse, but you're like 5'10", 5'11". So it was hard for them to market him the right way. Kofi Kingston, he, as talented as he was, his talent was actually what was his downfall, because it wasn't talent in a way like, oh, we can elevate his status. He was almost like a circus act. Like people wanted to see what he was going to do next, less than what he was going to say or who he was going to feud with, or, wanted to see his career advance. It was like, oh, it's a Kofi Kingston match. I want to see what he does in this match today. Mm-hmm. And Xavier Woods, he is the brains of the operation, but he was pretty much brand new going into it. So the concept of the New Day was supposed to be, three guys piggybacking off the gospel singers, churchgoers kind of thing. And they were supposed to spread the message of positivity, much like this old faction right to censor used to have to go around censoring everything that was going on in the Attitude Era. The New Day was there to spread positivity in an era where like there was all these feuds going on and everybody seemed like they hated each other. Like, it was John Cena and Randy Orton and John Cena and the fans. And like there was just so much anger. The problem is you're talking about a time where the lines of good and evil have been blurred so much in wrestling that people there's no good guy or clear-cut good guy, clear-cut bad guy. So having people come in as literal clear-cut good guys it's not going to resonate with the fans. It didn't make much sense. But because the guidelines that were given were you have to go around and spread positivity, they took that and they ran with it as far off to the right and left as they could instead of going in a straight line. So they're like, okay, Positivity. What are some positive things? Unicorns. People love unicorns. Let's come out dressed as unicorns. Dragon Ball Z is a big thing. People love watching that. Let's come out as Dragon Ball Z. People love pancakes. People love dancing. People love silly and stupid catchphrases. So I'm going to say "who" like an owl every 5 seconds, because it's just fun. Like they took the concept of spreading positivity and they were supposed to spread it originally to the wrestlers and to the fans. They took it purely and said, we're going to spread it to the fans. And anytime we're in a match, we're going to get on the microphone to quote unquote spread positivity by not down talking our opponents, but by talking about how we're either going to overcome this match or what we're going to do next after this. So people were always looking forward to what was the next thing that New Day was going to do, as opposed to what are they currently doing right now. Mm-hmm. And that's how they were able to honestly succeed far better than most factions. If you think about it, like they've, outside of maybe the Four Horsemen, they have outlived most factions that wrestling has ever created.
Yeah, it helps that they are legitimately best friends. They go out there and they have fun with everything they're doing. So their quote unquote gimmick is them having fun. It's just them going outside and it's like if Darren and I were a tag team, that's what we'd be doing, is going out and just having a blast and just making each other laugh. They are just hell bent on making each other happy, which translates to the fans. And that's the authenticity in their gimmick, which is they took it and they said, we're going to have fun with this no matter what. We're going to be on TV all the time. We're going to do the most we can with this thing. Like they hosted WrestleMania a couple years ago instead of wrestling at it. And they took it to the extreme where they treated it like it was the Oscars. Like they came out and they were like in suits and they were having just the most fun not wrestling. And it makes them viable champions because you want to cheer for these guys. You want to see them come out and see what they're going to do next, like you said. And they always have something new. Like if it's unicorns or if it's bootios or if it's
hence the term the New Day. And they took that name and said, you know what? We are not a gospel group. Every day we're out there is going to be a new day. That's part of the whole that's part of the whole loophole gimmick that they said, all right, well, this is what you gave us.
That's right. So, once again, this is from an outsider looking in. It looks like they're genuine fans of wrestling in general. Like it looks like they enjoyed it before they got into it.
Yeah, they love every moment of it. They love the process. They carry it over to things like Xavier Woods' YouTube channel, where he just plays video games, and he's kind of creating this platform for not only himself but the people of New Day and WWE to just have fun. Like it translates into every aspect. You can see it in his personal life. He brings that to the ring, and
it's much needed too. Very much. Considering that wrestling back then, the fraternity of wrestlers was all about drinking and alcohol and drug abuse and women. Like he's really one of the pioneers that say, while we're on the road and traveling, let's continue doing things together as a group. Let's find other means and sources of income. Let's continue having fun without getting ourselves into trouble.
Let's have fun. So, let's spread positivity. It's really nice. It's really nice aspect. And if you go back and watch their original debut, it is vastly different than what they do now. Where
it's like watching Brother Devon.
They're like in suits and they're very serious and stern, and this is going to be a change, and we're tired of this, and they were very aggressive. And then cut to now, and they're like in these brightly colored outfits, playing a tuba, whatever, throwing cereal at people, pancakes. Like it's always a new weird thing.
Yeah, it's a new day. It's always a new day. And to their credit, they're the only faction that I know of that did not have to recruit new members or replace members in order for them to have longevity. Mm-hmm. Like it's literally just those three guys, and they have lasted so long without feeling like the WWE is forcing the faction to stay together. Like, sad to say, like Evolution, you could tell at some point that they were forced to stay together because that that stable got so old. The NWO became so watered down and run down, but they kept forcing something out of it. Even the Nation of Domination dissolved very quickly, even though it seems like a long time, very quickly.
Literally
But
only 2 years.
yeah, but you look at the New Day, like they could probably have that going on for another 2 to 3 years and consistently reinvent what they're doing every day without having to reinvent themselves. Just come up with a brand new concept instead of throwing pancakes out. I don't know, start coming up with like chocolate chip cookie pancakes or waffles or whatever it is, or come up with some new concept of something, like you put a waffle inside of a pancake and they have some weird dumb name for it. Like they can just piggyback off of silliness and continue having fun and entertaining the fans.
So that's super positive. Let's close it out with something not as positive and less that and more. I don't think neither Darren nor I know a whole lot about this tag team, but we just we encountered them, sparingly, and then we both bought the WWE 2K19 video game and ran into them there. We're thoroughly confused by them.
We also chose them as a team and got thoroughly.
Let's talk about that part. All right, so the team is the Street Profits from NXT, and
Angelo Dawkins and Montez
oh
Ford.
my God! So, all right, Dad. Here's what happened. So we bought WWE 2K19 for no reason other than we needed something to play together, and we're huge wrestle heads, even though we don't like to say that. So we go online to play the game, and I think it was my idea to just say, hey, let's choose these two Street Profits. We had talked about them before and how they're very confusing, and one of them comes out with a cup, like he's drinking in this cup, and he's doing this weird dance, and the thick one, I forget it, Angelo Dawkins, the thick one, that's mean. He comes out, and he looks like the old wrestler D'Lo Brown, and he has in shorts and tights, and the whole gimmick is just very confusing to us. Only because it doesn't resonate with anything that we're familiar with. So we picked them to play online and get just decimated by we just get smushed. And the whole time we were playing, we're just cackling, just laughing at the ridiculous moves that we could not pull off. I think we faced someone like a tag team that they were just all 100s, and then we were like rated 72 or something. We just
as a total,
just getting wrecked, and it was the funniest thing ever. So before we get too deep, like, does anyone know anything about these guys at all?
Well, okay, I'll tell you my first time I saw them. I saw them on NXT. I think it was like during the tag team tournament. And Paul Ellering, for anyone who doesn't know, Paul Ellering is a very legendary tag team manager. He used to manage the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, Hawk, and Animal. So he was managing at the time. I believe, God, what's the name of those two humongous black guys?
Authors of Pain.
Yes, the Authors of Pain. Right. He was managing them, and they're having a match with the Street Profits. Now, Montez Ford is a skinnier one. At some point, Angelo Dawkins does some move. Montez Ford jumps outside, starts doing this weird like stepping dance with a cup in his hand, presents the cup to Paul Ellering, like, do you want to take a sip of this? And Paul Ellering like slowly reaches his hand out like he's going to drink it, and then smacks it out of his hand in the most gimmicky thing possible. And of course, Street Profits lost that match. But I remember watching them going, what in the world is this? Like it
looks like those old heads at a party or on the block that never knew how to leave.
Yeah.
That's what they look like. They look like they came to the party late and they should have left but never did, and they're just old and corny. That's what it looks like.
Well, now here's the thing. Both of those guys, Montez Ford especially, and Angelo Dawkins, who's very solid, both of those guys are phenomenal talents. The moves that they put together as a tag team and as individuals, like, really, really innovative stuff, really good. And it's not like high flying, it's not a high flying spot fest. Like, they put together moves that actually look like could work as a tag team. Now, how they came together, I honestly think, and I'm sure if I look it up, this will be the case. I honestly think they just like looked at each other across the room, like, "Hey, man, you want to be a tag team?"
I think that's exactly what happened.
we both run these streets. Street Profits. There we go. You know?
And
Just stir the pot.
just to echo what Darren said, like they are fun to watch when they're not doing the gimmick.
They're a gimmick.
Yeah. So I believe Angelo Dawkins is an actual like amateur wrestler. Like he has skills.
Yeah.
Like
You can tell.
I was a little flip when I called him thick, but he's a talented dude. He can wrestle circles around my behind. So yeah, I don't know. The gimmick itself is just so strange, and it's such a regression. I feel like and this is why I kind of wanted to structure it in this way. I feel like the New Day took things and showed people what they could do with maybe a gimmick that would lead them down a very familiar road, because they're like Darren mentioned earlier, there was Brother Devon, who was a pastor gimmick with Batista. If anyone remembers Deacon Batista, who went on to become Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
that was Batista's first foray into wrestling.
And it was,
into WWE's mainstream wrestling. He was in OVW before that.
But that gimmick, while it wasn't the most unique, it was interesting for Devon, who had been this kind of, very hardcore, putting people through tables thing. Then he becomes a pastor. He took it as far as it can go. But then the New Day was like going to kind of follow that path. And they said, no, we're going to do our own thing. And where like the Street Profits could be something different, I feel like they're just a new skin on an old thing when they're, coming out dancing, because a tag team we haven't talked about, Primetime Players kind of do that thing, right? They come out and they come out and do their little dance, and then they would go, and they were very high level athletes, and they ran their course pretty quick as well, but I feel like the Street Profits are that, but worse.
So here's the thing, and this is the catch-22 I was talking about earlier, especially with black athletes and tag teams, and let's say especially with black tag teams, right? You can put together any two guys of pretty much any race, and unless it's like a Sheamus and Cesaro, where they're both like just absolute foreigner, big guy that just crush them, they will die out. Nobody's going to care about them. Mm-hmm. Black tag teams, they're given something a little extra. Like, you now have a little extra sauce that you can play with. So you're going to stand out regardless. And even if it's stereotypical, it's absolutely different than every other tag team that's out there. So how you can create longevity, to it, is your own thing. And if you think about it, like New Day comes out dancing and singing and shucking and jiving, technically. So they could be just as stereotypical as Street Profits or Primetime Players that literally do the same thing, just dancing and shucking and jiving.
But it feels like they're coming from a different place, as opposed to they're not playing into the stereotypes.
Yeah, they're not coming from the ghetto. That's what you're trying to say.
Well, not even that. They're coming more from a place of authenticity. Like, let's say those guys,
all depends on who you are and how you look at it.
Yes, exactly. But there is a fervent exuberance to what they're doing. Like if Street Profits came out and they were as excited to be that group as the New Day are to be them, it would be different. I feel like I would buy it more. Like, I don't buy their gimmick. I feel like they're doing it to do it.
I do. I feel like Montez Ford fully buys into his gimmick. That man
his dances, like, man.
He is all about that. And I think it works well. It's like a black modern day Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart without such extreme characters. Like they really kind of complete each other. They complement each other really well. Whereas Angelo's the more grounded wrestler. Montez can be a little over the top, and it creates for a good dynamic. It's just sad that it's so stereotypical that it almost seems offensive.
Yeah, I'm not offended by it, but again, I just rolled my eyes the first time I saw it. Like, what is this? When we were playing online, it was the first time I think we both watched their entrance, like whatever they, filmed for that entrance, and we were so taken aback by how just strange it was.
But it also was not generic.
It wasn't
how
generic
many entrances
at all.
have we watched? We're just like, dudes walking to the ring.
It was definitely. It was. I can't get over the he does like this weird running man that's not actually the running man. It's just.
Yeah, it's like high knees. It's like he's
doing very high knees. He's doing super high knees. He's getting his cardio in right before the match. But then he's also holding this cup of a branded cup. I'll give him that.
No, that's during the match too. It's not just before the match. That cup is in his hand during the match.
But I'm saying like he has a branded cup. It's not like any old cup. Like it has their colors and their logo on it. Like they got cups printed up. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are deep into it.
just so you know, Dan, like when he says like branded cups, they're still paper
cups.
They're
still paper cups. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah,
so, yeah.
See, I've been looking up as you're speaking, and it's like this is crazy. Like that's where I got the whole all heads thing from. Like they walk around with Dixie cups, like the red Dixie cups, and just like there's no. It's just
guys looking for the party. Like where the party at today?
Exactly. They're just there, not knowing when to go home. That's what it looks like.
So we'll save some other some of the other tag teams for other episodes. I want to kind of close this episode out with just a quick forge where we kind of talk about what our ideal black tag team would be. Let's forge ahead and create some black tag teams. I will kick this off with my ideal black tag team. Let me see. I would love to see a Caribbean themed black tag team, something from the islands. Not necessarily Carlito or who was it? Who's the guy with the big hair? No Way Jose.
No Way Jose. Yeah.
But maybe something in that vein. And the only reason I say that is because you never really see West Indian wrestlers.
You do. That is on TV.
Yeah, but with like thick, accented, so that you almost like maybe they needed subtitles on their vignettes. And I would love it if they had like really thick accents, and then the interview was just like, "What?" And
I would love the subtitles at some point to just like have like ... a bunch of question marks.
Exactly. Like they're writing them and they don't know what they're saying, so it's just like question mark, blah 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 blah, and then maybe it says something like they just start writing phonetically, so it's not actual words. It's just like I think this is what it sounds like, and then exactly, and then maybe some interviews like they'd be speaking, and then the interviewer doesn't know what they're saying, so they kind of look down at the subtitles and they go, "Oh, okay," and they
talk about stereotypical, dude.
It's not. This is something that I go through. It's like listening to West Indian speak. I'm like, all right, sure, I got 48% of what you just said.
And this is coming from a West Indian.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not. So it would be super authentic to me to just be like, I don't know what you're saying. I mean, it's not even stereotypical. Like, sometimes you just don't know what people are saying. That's just a thing.
See, I work with a couple of Jamaican guys, and their patois sometimes. Like, I just stop. It's like, I don't think that was English. And technically, it wasn't. It was patois. But at the same time, it's like, I need to be around you guys a lot more because, like, I have to, like, slow it down, guys. Slow it down because I don't understand what you're saying. So I get that. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how do you make it fun? How do you make it interesting? And how do you make it not bog you down as a character?
Well, I mean, you can have one person do that part. They don't both have to, speak with such thick accents.
No, they both.
No, because then it becomes a little unrelatable. It would be even funnier if one of them sometimes doesn't know what the other one's saying either, and.
Unrelatable. Every time they spoke to the fans, dude, like the fans would just be waiting to hear what gibberish you're going to say, and just
But then we're getting into like a Funaki territory where it was just like
they don't have to be translated.
No, but again, that's what would happen with him. Like they waited for him to come out and say things they didn't understand, and then have them do like the bad Japanese.
And you're still talking about Funaki.
I love
today,
it.
So.
And he's all right. Let's just get something out of the way right now. The reason I answer people with Indeed is because of Funaki.
It's because of Funaki.
I do it to this day. I'll be at work. Someone will say something. I go, Indeed. It's because of Funaki. That's how much wrestling has influenced me. But yes, I agree. Like I would.
Okay, so I got the perfect tag team name, and you guys can build off of that. And this is very much self-serving, but I'm going to say it out loud because it sounds perfect. The Midnight Robbers. If you want to keep it Caribbean,
Oh my
do the
goodness.
Midnight Robbers.
The Midnight Robbers. We're just back in the Street Profits, prime time players territory.
No, we're not. Because if you Google the Midnight Robbers, the Midnight Robber is a classic West Indian carnival character, right? He's just braggadocious. Everything, it's like everything goes, larger than life character, and he has a specific way he talks called the robber speak, which is in rhyme, which is in rhythm, and it's like you have to look it up. Anybody out there that is hearing this right now, look up the Midnight Robbers and understand, the Midnight Robber, Trinidad Carnival, and understand where I'm coming from. Like, if you want a big, larger-than-life braggadocious character that can always come out with a new gimmick, a new costume, the Midnight Robber, plural, is the perfect way to start that.
I can work with that. I can work with that.
Okay.
You can come out.
That's a good concept.
Yeah. It's like every time a match starts up, they come out, they take that mic, and they do their robber speak, and they do their rhyming, and every single time they come out, like just like Carnival, like there's a new costume, there's a new extra added flair to their costume that makes them interesting.
Wait, I'm going to take it even further. Darren, let's create this tag team in WWE 2K19 and then use them online.
Oh, please, I want to see this.
I don't know. We'll do some research now. So you're asking me, the former creator wrestler guy, to come up with to create something. I'm gonna go crazy with this.
All right, so here's what we can do. Let's create a basis for these two, right? Let's create like a name or something. Like we have Midnight Robbers. Like, what are the two guys' names? Where are they from? And then each of us can take that. Take one person and we create them. Then we can post it, and then we can challenge people online to tag team matches.
Okay, that's like, can I feed you some things here? Okay, so like, you want names of the Midnight Robbers? You got Jab Jab and Jab Malasi. Those are two perfect names for the Midnight Robbers, right? Where they come from is Lavantil, Trinidad, one of the worst ghettos in Trinidad, and they're able to raise themselves up out of the ghetto to become these larger life characters on the main stage with these elaborate costumes and bigger than life, and be able to beat the shit out of you and be clever about it all at the same time.
Well, there you go.
All right. That was easy.
So yeah. So let's see. If I was to create a black tag team, honestly, I would go absolutely away from every other stereotype. So we've seen the sports athletes, we've seen the gospel and the churchgoers, we've seen the pimps and the hustlers, and we've seen all that stuff. I'm gonna go left field and say I want two guys that come straight from money. Like, they don't know what a trash can looks like because they're butlers. Okay, throw out the trash. Like, if you ask them to make oatmeal, or if you ask them to make chicken, like, their response to you would be like, sure, Jeeves.
So two Tony Starks, basically, just like.
No, I'm talking about, we're going to go even further past Tony Stark, because Tony Stark at least puts together things themselves. Like, these two guys can't do anything for themselves because they've been so babied growing up that they don't even wrestle.
All right, so
themselves. So they're a tag team that chooses other people to wrestle for them because that's what they know how to do. It's just they just pay people to do things for them. So it's like, oh, we have the tag team championships on the line. Not a problem. And they put together like two of the most random guys. Like, I don't know, like they get like Braun Strowman and the Big Show to take on the Street Profits to help them win the tag team championships. Like, and that's that tag team, the one tag team that literally never wrestles.
So they're basically managers with titles.
But at the same time, they do the entrances. Like, they come out because they're so lavish and luxury that they have to be the ones that do the entrance. They don't allow whoever it is that comes out for them to have even entrance music or any of that stuff. They can't, they just have to walk out, wrestle, hand them the belts if it's a match, or if they win, just walk out, and then those two guys will then enter the ring and celebrate as if they're the ones that wrestled the match.
So does it mean they have butlers say I'm seeing in my head they walk out with their money and they're lavish, and whoever they choose at that point dress like butlers, like Alfred from Batman, and wrestle in those tuxedos?
They can have they can have themed outfits for whatever they want. Like if they're like, we want you two to dress up as dragons for the match today, then that's what's going to happen because they're paid for it.
Hold on. What if instead of a tag team, this is like a New Day-esque faction where two of them are the rich guys and then each one has their own specific butler?
No. See, they're too rich to consider anybody else on their level that it would be a faction. Everyone else of them is just hired
I'm saying instead of it being just two guys, it's four guys, but two of the guys are butlers. So instead of getting random people, they just always dress these two up in whatever they want, and then they don't even pay them. They're just saying, "Oh, they come out, they come out, and the spotlight's on the first two, and then you can see in the dark the other two guys who are dressed like butlers, and then they do their entrance, they walk to the ring, they get in, they do their, they're posing, and then the butlers get in, those other two get out, and then they go sit at the announce table and say, "Man, that was a good move that I would have done," and then the butlers win, and then they get out of the ring. Then the other two get back in the ring, celebrate, and then everyone leaves.
No, I'm gonna take it even further with this one. Right? They actually stand on the apron, and they choose. And part of the reason why I wanted them to choose random people, because sometimes they might just like grab a random guy from the crowd, like you're gonna wrestle this match for me today, kind of thing. Like they just have so much money that they don't care.
But the way you phrased it was that they've never done anything. They've had butlers do stuff for them. Wouldn't they then?
Well, they've had everybody do stuff for them. Like they even have their groceries delivered to their door, not necessarily by a butler.
Then why not, instead of random people, why not have like their staff? Like why not have like instead of calling them random people, say that I brought my maid today to wrestle for me.
Let's take it one step further. Let's say as soon as they enter the WWE premises, at that point they consider everybody who works there as their staff.
Better. I like that. That makes sense because then wherever they go, they believe whoever's there is supposed to be working for them.
Yeah.
So instead of they can walk through the arena like the backstage vignettes could just be pulling like staffers with them, like, "Oh, you have a match tonight." They're like, "What?" And he's like, "Come on, let's go." You're defending our titles.
But they absolutely have to stand on the apron, just not be tagged, because I think that's the fun of that gimmick. Is that they're sitting there, and there's always that possibility that they might be tagged, so it gets the fans just like a little like warmed up, like, "Oh, we're gonna actually see these guys wrestle."
What if they sit in an opposite corner? So the tag team sit in two separate corners. There's two empty corners. What if two of them sit in those corners, and anytime like the fight kind of gets closer to them, they kind of back away all scared, like, no, don't touch us. But they're like in the middle of it. They're just like,
I don't know.
I want the announcers to be able to play into this where like they get hot. It's kind of like Goldberg back in the day. Like Goldberg was more hyped than anything else. So like before they even make their quote unquote debut, the announcers are like in the background talking about these guys. Like, have you heard about these upstart phenom wrestlers? And like to the very point, like they're about to come into the ring, and everybody's all hyped up because like, oh, they're greater than God, and all of a sudden they start picking other people, and the announcers are always playing into it. We're like, "Oh, we haven't seen them wrestle this time, but we heard we're so phenomenal," like and talk them up the entire time. Never ever say anything bad about it. Make the audience feel crazy.
Right? Yeah, and here's even the beauty part of it. If they decide, let's say they have a tag team of, I don't know, let's say they chose Sheamus and Cesaro to be the tag team to represent them, and they're taking on the New Day. If they decide that they want Cesaro to tag in Xavier Woods to then wrestle whoever's in the ring at that time, they have that option to do it because it's on to them, everything is on their terms. So it's like, no, I want you to tag in.
They have the New Day wrestle themselves for them,
and have the New Day wrestle.
That'd be hilarious. If they're like, "No, now Xavier, you tag in Big E, and you two wrestle, and Xavier, you're wrestling for us now."
And the only reason people even do it is because they're just so confused. Like,
I guess this is how this is working now.
This is what's supposed to happen.
Right. So how does this name sound? No term limits. No. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to work on that.
All right. I tried.
Term. I don't even understand what that means.
You said like everything they do is on their terms and their terms only, so no term limits.
Oh,
They need to have. I think they need to have more fanciful names. Like you remember, Carl, like when I made up that like the foppish Mr. Gray. Like they just need to have this really just like elegant names for no reason. The Esquires, just because. Yeah, like the Esquire. Yeah, like Esquires LLC.
Yeah, so they need like a business name. Like they've created their own kind of like corporation.
Oh, like shell corporations within shell corporations.
Yep, and they've just got,
I like that.
Yeah, and they've just got nothing but this, like, when they're announced individually, they had like DDS and Doctor and PhD because they had money to get all those.
But they know none of it. They know zero of it.
They don't need to.
I think.
It's like that. I mean, that's perfect for the times we live in now, where like you just feel crazy. Like it's like you're a con man. It's like no, I'm not. Why would you say that? And everybody else around here believes that I am as great as I say I am. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah,
that's gaslight the shit out of people. That sounds amazing. And I curse. I'm sorry.
I think that's a great place to end it on the curse.
Yes, it is.
This was fun. We have to do another wrestling.
Very enlightening too. I have a totally different perspective on before, as opposed to when I came into this podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Darren, for coming on. We will have you on again for some more wrestling inputs. I'd love to do more Black wrestler episodes. Focus down on specific, like Farouk or, like I said, Junkyard Dog.
Farouk is.
Can we talk about the Nation of Domination at one point too? Because I want to know how The Rock got it into all that.
Yeah, the Nation of Domination is such a big.
Episode,
I didn't want to kind of give them short shrift. Not to give New Day. I feel like we gave New Day its own.
Absolutely, so much praise.
Anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode. Don't forget to find us on social media at SuperBlackOrg on Twitter and Instagram. You can find Dan at.
You can find me on Instagram at _basement_monster or at the Carnival Prince, all one word. On Twitter, I don't even know anymore because I barely use that service.
Which is a question, and I question why you even bring it up, because you don't use it.
Yeah, it's just for funsies. Just for funsies. And on Facebook, The Basement Monster. Simple.
Darren, is there anything you would like to promote or put out there?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at trial N, the letter N error 423. Same name and number combination on Patreon as well. Support the comic, support the feed, and you can also find me at work.
Don't tell them where you work. So,
I will not.
Thanks again for listening. This has been Super Black.
See you next time, guys.
Full stop.